Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I am Kristen Johnson.
And we were just talking about how people say our name occasionally, Bigfoot and the Bunny, and it just sounds too close to In the Bunny, and the visual that comes with that can sometimes be a little horrifying.
Yes.
But short-lived, as our guest said. Just pretty funny. Well, it's a really hot Saturday afternoon here in New England, and I know some of you guys are at the beach and all that kind of stuff, so if you're not watching us live, well, shame on you. I hope you watch the replays.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of friends out in Gettysburg this weekend too,
yes,
which is another thing. And I want to say hi to those guys. Hope you're having a good time and getting the full body apparition photos that Gettysburg is just so good at producing.
Yeah.
And
Chris really wants to go to it.
I do.
This is his bucket list. This is his first one.
Yep. We will get there eventually. What is it?
None of my pages are live.
Oh, no?
No.
Oh, well, we seem to be streaming. It says we are. I'll give it the old phone check, and we even got a comment out there, so it must be. That's probably the computer.
Probably.
Yeah, that computer is on its way out. And I keep buying like other things. We keep buying different paranormal gear, and we should probably be buying you a new computer for this.
Yeah.
That's true.
There we go.
There's some truth. You see stuff going on? Look good.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks good to me. All right, so we can get right to things. Sorry about that. I do want to give a shout out to our Paranormal UK radio network listeners as well. You guys are great, and thank you for downloading this as an audio podcast through the week. It's usually out on Wednesdays, and it's a great network. You guys should check it out. If you're not familiar with it, if you've only seen us on Facebook and other places, and you're into podcast, look up Paranormal UK Radio Network. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to our guest. He's a funny guy. His name is Todd Wilcox. He is known as the Slipstream Shaman, and will take us on a journey into the quantum field as he discusses how you can learn to use your natural abilities in quantum healing. He will also discuss his experiences and research in the paranormal field, and we're going to talk about things like shadow people, hence the background, Bigfoot, and investigations in general, I believe, and probably anything else that comes up. His book is called Slipstream Shaman, Using Quantum Healing for Individuals, Communities, the Planet, and Beyond. And I like the sound of this. Let's bring him right on. Hey there, Todd. How are you? Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here.
Good. We got a few people out there saying hello. Hello, Joanne Stewart.
Hi,
hello, Anne-Marie Young.
Hello, we made it.
Hello, Debbie Wallace-Hagan.
Hi, Debbie.
And hey, Kimmy, how are you doing?
Hi, Kimmy.
So, all right. I know it's tough. I'm not sure where are you located, Todd. What part of the country?
Yeah, I'm in Oregon right now. I'm kind of split between Oregon and Utah, and right now I'm in the heat and the humidity, just like you are, and so it's kind of nice to be in an office with some air conditioning. I'm not going to complain right now.
Oh yeah, same here. Same here. We've got a fan going and air conditioning and all that.
It's like 91 or something.
At least, and it was just so muggy. I just imagine everybody is looking for a water source or a place to lay out in the sun. But I love the name of your book, and this name, Slipstream Shaman. What does that mean? And can you tell us a little bit about this?
Absolutely. So I wanted to make sure that when people saw this book that it wasn't, and not that the old school of shamanism is bad, but that it's not a part of that. It's not something that's going to take you 3, 4, 6 weeks to do one process. The processes that are in this book are very fast, and the slipstream also refers to energy. So it's speed and energy. And most of our listeners have been on the highway and a semi passes them, and you feel yourself getting pushed to the side as it goes by and then sucked back over once it gets gone. Or if you get right behind them, you notice that all of a sudden you're going 5 or 10 miles an hour faster than you were, but you're using less RPMs. That's the slipstream. So what's happening here is you're making changes, doing things to better your life and your community and the planet, movement, and it just takes off. You're riding a wave after you set this thing in motion, and it's pushing things forward for you, and it's also healing things behind you. So the Slipstream is a very powerful place to be.
That sounds it. That sounds really cool, and we love energy work. How is this different than, say, like Reiki and that sort of thing?
Okay, so there's a lot of similarities. Both are working in energy. Reiki focuses mostly clearing out chakras, cleaning the person. Very specific ways of going through and cleaning things, getting energy lined up. And I have a great friend that does Reiki and helped me with some sleeping trouble I was having. So it's a wonderful process, and it does a great job. Where this differs, it's something you can do on your own, something you can do for people as well, just like Reiki. But it's in more of a meditative state. You're more actively involved. You're not channeling energy. You're actually watching what's happening and controlling what's happening. You'll be in a place where spirit and energy interact, and that's where you make the changes. And that's the biggest difference, is that you're actually in a meditative state in a place where you can interact with spirit and energy to make these changes.
Spirit as well. I like that. Meaning your own spirit or other spirits?
Everybody. What we'll find out as we talk tonight is that my spirit, my energy, I'm not sure how to describe what I am when I'm in there. I'm out of my physical body. My physical body is usually in a chair relaxing, and I'm in this different place. So I believe that spirit. And I also have the spirits of pets that I've had in the past that come help me with this work. And so, and spirits of loved ones that have left me that come and help. So, spirit's highly involved. And also the spirit of the person I'm working with is in that room with me.
Sounds awesome.
It really does sound interesting.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about those pets and the animals. Do animals play a big role in this?
A huge role. So what happened, maybe we'll just kind of start how this whole thing developed. I was in a paranormal group and love paranormal. I've been involved in at least 300 investigations, possibly more. And
excellent.
And you get to know a lot of people, right? You know tons of people from other groups, and you just run into people and you get to know them. And I had a person from another group call me and say that they were putting together a group of people that would go help people that nobody else could help. A haunting that was really bad. If somebody was just having too much trouble and no other group could help them take care of it, then we would go in and do it. And I said, yeah, it sounds great, but how do we do that? Just saying it's not going to get it done. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do? What do we have to learn? And
right.
So that was part of the group's plan, was figuring out what we had to learn, how we were going to do it. And it started off, like many paranormal groups, they wanted to model everything like taps. And we're going to have a demonologist and all this thing. And somebody said, well, yeah, that's nice. We can do that. But how about we get some training from somebody instead of just, calling ourselves names. And so the first person that we brought in was a shaman to teach us how to work with energy. And this shaman was teaching us about finding the energy that's, you find it between your hands. You'll bring your hands together and you start feeling the energy. Her energy was one color, and I can't remember what it was. And she said it was warm, and she was telling us that's what you're going to feel. Well, my energy was cool, and it was a light blue. It's kind of like the top of your flag up there with the Bigfoot and the bunny, that light blue that's on the top. And
is this your aura field? If you don't mind me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is she talking about your aura when she says this, like that kind of aura that you can see around people?
Not so much that energy, but it is part of it. And you will take this energy once you condense it and put it around you. And so it will interact with that aura and probably changes the aura, but it's slightly different. And so it's more of you've got chakras in your palms and you're using those to access this energy that's a part of you. And hers was, I think she was saying green and dark. Mine was a light blue and cold, and she just kept going on and on and on about how it had to look and feel. And so I kind of disengaged. I wasn't buying it. Once I left, I started practicing that on my own, and I accessed the energy, and I could manipulate it. And I felt I started practicing some of the other things she was saying because she had good information. Her interpretation was wrong for me, so I couldn't stay involved in it. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book is if you're doing any of these processes and they don't feel right for you, they don't ring true, adjust them until they do. You don't have to mimic everything I do. You can do your own thing. I love a movie called A River Runs Through It. And there's a part of that where everybody, the dad and the two boys are fishing, and the youngest boy breaks away and has his own rhythm for fishing that was different than what the dad taught. And that's what I hope everybody does is get the basics from me, experiment, practice, and then do their own thing and really take this to a new level. I'm hoping that we're going to get thousands of people doing this work, that we can all work together and really make some changes in the world, not just in our communities, but the planet and beyond. So as I'm working with this energy, using it and putting it around me like an aura for protection, I just started experimenting. And the more that I practiced it, the easier it was to access this energy. And then one day I thought, I'm going to put the energy around me and meditate. And when I did that, something very different happened than normal meditation. What my meditation had been for years was sit in a chair, breathe rhythmically, try to clear my mind, and then fall asleep for a half hour. And so I really didn't get much out of meditation. But when I used the energy to take me to a place of meditation, that was when everything changed. And that was when I found the quantum room. And my quantum room is where I interact with energy and spirit to make these changes. Mine looks like just a misty, gray, misty room. And everybody that I've worked with has a different room. Nobody's looks like mine and or each other's. One lady has a beautiful pond with some steps that she goes into. One is in space. One is in a car. There's all kinds of things. Where you go to do this work doesn't matter. It's your own personal place. You know, you might be a tiny part of a flower or a hair on a bee. Who knows? But wherever you're doing the work, it's your place to do it. And as I was working on these things and getting good at meditating in that room, a thought occurred to me is, you know, how do I help people? What do I do to help people? A friend of mine needed some help, and I invited this person into the room. And then I thought, okay, great. The person's here. What do I do now? And I knew that he was having trouble with, he felt like there was things attached to him, and like demons, ghosts, aliens, whatever you want to call it. He thought things were attached. And so I thought, you know, if I had a warrior group to get these things off him, that would be a good place to start. And when I said warrior group, the mist cleared a little bit, and a dog that I used to have named Desi, she was a little beagle, came through the mist. And you think beagle, you don't necessarily think ferocious. This dog was ferocious. She was the sweetest dog to people, but no rat, no snake, nothing like that could be in the yard. It was going down, and it was going down hard. And I watched her run a husky out of the yard one time. Dog 10 times bigger than her. But yeah, she was absolutely ferocious to protect things. And so she was the first one through, and she had a nose that nothing got by. And then a few of my other dogs came out. And it started off with 4 dogs, Desi and 3 Springer Spaniels. And then some other things started coming to me later. But what Desi would do in this room is start sniffing the people. Whoever I invited in, she'd start sniffing them and finding things on them that shouldn't be there because, you know, nothing could get past her nose. And what I didn't realize at the time, I call most of these things now companions. There's 2 different things that we take off people, companions and parasites. And the companions are things that started out as something good, something positive. In some of my other training, we learned that everything starts with a positive intent. And I wasn't thinking about that at first. I was just looking at all these things as bad. And so we would remove things from people and just burn them. And people would get relief. It would feel better. But it didn't always last. And So then I realized, well, nature abhors a vacuum. So maybe what's happening is we're taking off a problem, but a new problem's coming in. So then I made a love team. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it fills the void. Like all voids kind of get filled, right?
Yeah, you've got to fill the void.
Thing will take its place.
Absolutely. And so I figured, what's the opposite of a warrior team? And that would be a love team. And so I invited things in for the love team. And I got a little dog that came through. Her name was Sin Sin. We had her when I was little. A favorite aunt of mine came in who was the most loving person in the world. A couple other things came in. So now I had a love team. So we would pull these things off and then fill that person with love so the void was filled. And that seemed to make really good, lasting changes for them. But then I remembered about everything starts with a positive intent. So I was thinking, what about these things that we're taking off and just burning, just incinerating? We might be hurting something that wanted to help them. So we changed our focus. Yes.
I'm sorry. When you say burning, do you all sit there and think about burning this entity off? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, great question. So we're just sending energy at it. I'm sending my energy. A couple of the people, things on the warrior team send energy, and would just incinerate it until it was just gone. And a violent, awful thing, but I thought they were bad things. When I realized that most things start with a positive intent, we changed our strategy. We would still hit them with energy, burn them, basically debride them. Like if you get a bad burn at the hospital and they have to take the skin off, they have to take the things. That's what we're doing. We're getting rid of all the crud and getting it ready for healing. So we'll burn them just quickly and then put them with the love team, and they change. So, and as an example, I was working with a lady, and Desi pulled this thing that looked like a rag out of her back, and we debrided the rag, we burned it a little bit, and then the love team gave it tons and tons of love energy, and it went from being this rag into this little boy that just looked up at her with love eyes and then walked away. And I don't know, I don't interpret what these things are. That's for the person to do themselves. But what I didn't know at the time was that she had heart trouble, fairly bad heart trouble, and it was going the wrong way, and the medicine wasn't helping. And once we did this, the medicine started to work. I assume it was the medicine that started to work. Anyway, her heart started getting better. So almost from the time we did this, her heart started to improve. Several months later, her medicine was reduced. Within a year, she was off of it.
Oh, wow.
Heart's great now. And that's been over 3 years now. So that's...
Can I ask you something about that? Okay, so when you say she was having those problems, like, I have heart issues and stuff too. Can something like attach to somebody and it affects their lifestyle and things of that nature? That is why like things were getting worse or progressively worse, whether it's like heart disease or cancer or something like that. Some other disease that a person might have. Is it the attachment itself that's doing it, or is it the way the attachment manipulates the person?
I think what's happening is the attachment is causing energy to not flow correctly. And so there's something in the way. There's a blockage. There's a dam making things go around. Maybe it's pulling too much energy in, but there's something affecting the natural flow of energy. And I think that's what these things are. And they started off as something positive, and I don't know what. But as an example, you think about a little kid getting screamed at by his dad, and what resources do they have? Basically, they can just shrink in, try to be small, try to be quiet, let that storm pass. Well, that helped that day, right? It helped him get through that. The dad quit yelling, and that becomes something that they use. Well, that process, that plan doesn't work well in junior high or high school when you have some kind of conflict. It doesn't work well in work later when you have a conflict. And so something that started out as positive that was trying to help him becomes something that caused him problems later on. And that's what a lot of these companions, the ones that change into something beautiful, are. And then there's the parasites that are just, I don't know what they are. And in answer to your question, Chris, I don't know if they do change lifestyle, help, cause them to have lifestyle issues. That is a really great thing that I need to look at, and it could be a lifestyle thing as much as energy. I always just assumed it was energy, but it very well could be causing them, maybe the energy flow is causing them to make inappropriate choices with lifestyle that hurts them. So I think you're on to something there.
Diabetic that just continues to eat chocolate or something like that,
Yes. Yeah. And when we find the issue, and it may not have anything to do with the bodily parts of, say, diabetes. It might not be anything to do with when I'm finding the problems in the person. It may not be their pancreas. It may not be their liver. It may not be, whatever. But those things come out as a metaphor, that it might be a stick that we take out, or a rock, or an acorn, or a dragon, or who knows. And then they turn into something different once we give them the love. Parasites are things that I don't know. I'm guessing they're things that people would call a demon or an alien. And those things, we tried to give them love. I was doing one earlier today, and when we got to the love part, this thing just exploded and vaporized. It was not accepting the love or being any part of that. So some of these things are just bad, but most of them are things that started off with a positive intention.
That's really interesting.
Yes.
And it's kind of synchronistic. So I'm reading this book. It's called Consorting with Spirits by Jason Miller. And he talks about how in all these different traditions, we have these different sort of levels, like Buddhists and stuff. And different traditions and pathwork have different levels, but there are things like the physical body, the etheric body, the mental, getting to a point of it's almost godlike or source. And it reminds me of this. And I was having these thoughts of, like, when we think about things that are negative or things that are positive, like what happens to them if these emotions seem to carry through the different levels where these communications, can happen. I wonder if they just end up becoming these sort of parasites. If you have a negative emotion, like the emotion just doesn't stop in the physical, and it traverses these different levels, whatever they are. And maybe nobody has all those answers, but ends up somewhere, like as a bit of energy. Like when you walk into a room full of happy people, you feel it immediately. Mm-hmm. It's almost palatable. Yeah. If you work in a room full of sad people, you feel that as well. So where does that energy go? Maybe that's how these things end up being created. We love the idea like spirit rescue and attachments and removing them. And I love this topic. I want to learn so much more about it.
Ask you.
Yeah.
I only know about it. I don't know how to do it and that kind of thing. So I'm really interested in this.
We both are.
Yeah, we both are. I did say we, didn't I? I said I'm sorry. I got to stick with the we's here because we do research stuff. So it doesn't sound foreign or crazy to us. Please go on. Like, how does it work?
And as you said that, it very much rang true to me that this, like today as an example, I pulled this parasite off of somebody that looked like a big nasty bug, and it had its mouth was hooked to the person. It had its arms digging into the person, its legs digging into the person. We had to remove all that, and that was the thing that when we gave it love, it just blew up. And as you were saying that, I could see that thing starting out. Who knows how long ago, as just a negative thought that got some energy, got some more energy, attached to somebody, got some more energy, grew and grew and grew. So I think there might be something to that, where these things started as a negative thought, negative energy, and grew into something really nasty like this thing was. So, yeah, I think that's a really good call, Chris. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just happened to be thinking about that while we were driving. Like, where does it go? Where does it start? And here we were talking about it. And wow, maybe that is a thing. And, emotion, a lot of people talk about, spirits and paranormal, about the ghost is an emotional version of the person that lived. It's kind of the same person. If they're mean and spiteful, they seem to be mean and spiteful in the afterlife, but it's all very emotional. It's like some of the physical characteristics don't seem to exist. So maybe, like like a wave, a particle wave, right? Because we're talking quantum.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thoughts just get out there, and they don't really dissipate the way we think, and they end up in maybe these other realms.
Absolutely. And a terrifying thought hit me as you were talking about thinking about things while you were driving. I send some awful negative things out into the universe when I'm driving. I feel like everybody's cutting me off on purpose and doing crazy things to make me mad. And I'm a bit of a lunatic. And so I need to stop that. I don't know how many parasites I've created just driving for a couple hours. So I need to really change my behavior.
There are road rage demons out there somewhere, just haunting people.
So you feel that these parasites can be manifested, created, like you just said.
I think he's right. Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing that could happen, and it's terrifying. You think about all the negative thoughts that people have around the world every day. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of opportunities for these parasites to make it out, and I'm hoping that it's much like with things in the ocean where there's 20 million octopus eggs in a batch, and only one of them makes it to maturity. I hope that that's how these things are too, because I could personally overrun a world with my driving thoughts, and I have to change that. So thank you, Chris. You've made my life better, and probably the life of a lot of people.
Right. I understand about the road rage.
We do. Somebody cut me off with all my kids in the truck, and we just came from McDonald's. This is a terrible story. And thank God the window was down and not up, because I threw French fries and a milkshake at the guy. Yeah, he wasn't happy. I was really just so upset about that. I probably created about 10 parasites at that point, but
right.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe these things collect and to turn into bigger things eventually. You got to hope that the good stuff does too, right? And maybe
exactly
when we feel feelings of love and happy emotions,
and the emotions, the negative's going to feed the negative. It's going to attach.
Maybe that gets out there as something hopefully more pleasant.
Absolutely.
Maybe it affects karma. I mean, I don't know. I think I could
believe in karma.
I could 420 on this and write a book. I think right now, because now I'm starting to think, geez, maybe these things are out there. And this is where, it's like an inertia, and that's the karma that some people talk about and don't talk about. But I'll just stop now.
Yes, please.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
I wanted
deep thoughts.
I wanted to ask you, how did you get into the paranormal? Did you have a haunted childhood? We ask everybody this.
Yeah. So I can remember just loving monsters and spaceships and ghost stories from my earliest memories. Those are the things I think about. And one of the things that happened recently, I think I probably did have a bit of a haunted childhood. I was doing some work with somebody, and I had what I would call a download, where I saw a past moment in my life. I was in a basement of a home that my parents had when I was young. I would have been probably 3 or 4 at the time, and I would go down in the basement and ride this rocking horse, the kind with the 4 springs on it. And of course, watching the Westerns, you had to ride it hard and fast. And I'm just going crazy on this thing. And I can remember watching myself do that recently in this download and seeing at least 10 of what I would call a watching man. Some people call him Hat Man. Some people call it a shadow person. And what they are is somebody that's about 6 feet tall. Looks like they have a helmet on or a hat, a long cape or coat. They're dark. They have a face, but you can't really see it. And there was a bunch of those things in there watching me. And you have other experiences. So yeah, I think I had a bit of a haunted childhood, and I had forgotten about those guys. The first time I remember seeing one, I was probably 30. But now that I had that thing, I'm picturing them and picturing those in other situations. So I think those have been keeping an eye on me for a while.
Were they? So they were positive. They weren't negative towards you.
I would say they are neutral. They seem to just be interested. They're like a scientist trying to see what reaction is going to happen when 2 chemicals mix. My experience with these things is that they just watch.
We call them lurkers.
Lurkers. Okay. Yeah. That's a good name. I've talked to, I've lost count, well over 100 people about these. And I've only talked to 3 people that have had bad experiences. The rest have been very neutral, where the thing's just watching and only watching for a second. Some with very little interaction, and then 3 that were quite terrifying. So, and the funny thing with the 3 that were terrifying these are all retired police officers, and I don't know what's going on with that energy. That's something that I'm exploring right now. But yeah, three different retired police officers are the ones that told me about the bad experiences with those. Everybody else has had, for the most part, neutral.
Wow. So you think maybe those bad experiences were a reason why they would become the police officers, like childhood experience?
Was it a childhood experience or was it recent?
To be
They were adult. Yeah, they were adult experiences that they had.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And it might be because they're around so much negative, and that's something that the second book that in this series is going to be about, and not geared straight towards policemen, but to people that are in traumatic places all the time, and that can be a policeman, a fireman, a paramedic, a doctor, a nurse, even what we've learned over the last year, people that work in retail, people that work in restaurants, they're put through a lot of abuse with TikTok and the different things. Now people like to throw drinks at people in the drive-through after they give them their order, and they go into retail places to break things on purpose just to see reactions. So what I'm looking at doing is helping really everybody, but it started off with police and firemen, fire department personnel, to help them remove that trauma, do a trauma release so that they don't build these things up. And I'm almost wondering if that built up trauma, that built up cloud that many police officers have, attracted these negative lurkers, watching men, as you will, and brought them to it. So I would say that it's probably a manifestation of the things that they've witnessed and just built up and can't let go of.
Now, these watching men, are they similar to shadow people?
I guess let's start with what I consider a shadow person, and then so shadow people are things that you don't quite see, that kind of move in the shadows, that drift away from you. If that's the shadow person you're talking about, then yes, I think there's something like that. But I don't know exactly what any of them are. I sometimes feel like it's a traveler. One interesting story, a guy I interviewed talked about having one of these things at the foot of his bed, and it was staring at him, and then it just kind of walked through him to the back of to behind him. His head was up against the wall, and this thing stood behind him and was looking down. As soon as it was behind him and looking down, it said, "You are me, we are they," something like that. And his perspective changed from laying in bed looking up to standing behind the bed looking at his body and then out the room. And so he believes that was a form of himself, something in the future, part of his spirit, a different part of him, but still a part of him that was doing that. And so these may be ourselves doing our, it might even be us in doing our life review after we pass, and we just happen to be seeing part of that. I don't know. That thing, when he told me about that happening, it kind of rang true, and based on my feeling when I see them, I wonder if it is an aspect of me, because they don't make me nervous. They don't make me scared. It kind of, honestly, it makes me feel kind of special when I get to see them, because not everybody does.
Oh, in that sense, you're talking about something that's close to like a near-death experience, where you're seeing some aspect of yourself, like an astral, but maybe more than that, actual soul or something.
Yeah, and
walking through.
Yeah, and with the way time works, who knows? One thing I've found is doing this work, when I'm in my quantum room doing this work, time is completely different than it is here. My physical body might be sitting through a 10-minute session with me gone, where it feels like I've been in there an hour. or the opposite can happen, where it feels like I've been in the quantum room for just a few minutes and an hour has passed, where my physical body is. So time is weird. And when I wrote the book Slipstream Shaman, something that made my editor crazy was, she says, do you even have a basic grasp of future, past, and present tense when you're writing? And I said, yeah, I think so. I thought I did. And she says, well, I need you to look at all these notes. And when I wrote the stories about the things that took place in the quantum realm, present, past, and future are all mixed together. So the word I was using was right for the story, but it's not right for a person that reads English or writes English. So I kept having the tense wrong. And when she would rewrite it, it reads correctly for somebody that knows English. The words are wrong for my recollection of what took place there, because time is so different. You're interacting with future, past, and present when you're in that realm. And so the words that you use to describe it don't always make sense.
I can believe that. From astral experiences, it seems like the time doesn't matter. And I suspect it's a lot similar to what the spirits that we maybe communicate with in these paranormal investigations are experiencing as well. I don't know if there really is a sense of time. There just is, if that makes any sense.
I was doing an investigation one time, and I asked the question, how do you travel? Are you able to travel anywhere you want? Is it fast? Is it slow? And the answer that I received was out of time. I have an EVP that says out of time.
Oh, wow.
And I don't like review things, and I don't wear headphones and that. I review it later. So I wasn't able to do a follow-up. But what I felt like it was telling me, that it travels outside of time and can be anywhere at once at any time. Is the feeling that I got.
Yeah. Maybe time may be a human condition.
It's just a linear,
mortal coil type condition. And
for sure, lineal time is just for us. And
linear.
Linear. There we go. Lineal. I don't know what that is. Linear time is just for us. And a strange thing that happens is when I'm in doing this work, when I'm in there, everything's clear, everything's in focus. Once I come back, I have a very limited time to make notes. And if I don't write down everything that just happened within an hour, it's gone. I don't remember anything that happened in the session. And I think that's because our brains are not running on the same timeline phase. When you watch Star Trek, loves to have things slightly out of phase. So something's moving really fast and you can't see it, or we're moving really slow, or different things like that. And I think something happens phase-wise where my brain is just not able to hold it. If I write it down and review it later, it makes sense. The other funny thing that happens is I have a style of writing, and it's not pretty, but it's kind of block lettering, and people can read it for the most part. When I'm writing notes after being in the quantum room, it's a disaster. It looks like something that a doctor would scribble on a prescription. And I'm thinking it's my brain and my arm and all the neurons trying to remember, trying to interact with what took place on a level that they can't. And so nothing's really working right. And
you can't catch up
the notes
to it.
I have, the notes are just a mess. And so I like to retype them. I never let anybody read those things because they're just a mess. And so I'll type them when I tell people what I found when I was working with them.
It's almost like automatic writing or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's coming through you, doing it for you. A couple of comments up there. Amber Young says, do you ever just know what kind of work people do because of their energy? She says she's usually about 80% correct.
I haven't tried that. And if she means like if I meet somebody and know that they're a teacher or something like that, no. I haven't practiced it. Maybe that's something I can look at too. I think that's very interesting, and I envy her ability to do that. 80% is a pretty solid mark. That's dead on.
That's pretty good. Jeannie says, sounds like your spirit walking. I believe it's a Native American term.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And, many of the things that I'm doing come from Indian training. So that would probably be a very accurate statement that it is a type of spirit walking. And thank you. I think you're right about that.
Very cool. Can we go back to that quantum room? And the meditative states and get in there. So in the book, a person who buys the book, is it kind of a happy place, and you're going to be able to take them into there to the level where they're able to start to see these attachments? That sort of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the book is written in a way that an average reader can read the entire thing in about 2 hours. I wanted it to be something that you got a hold of and started using. I go to people's homes and they've got these libraries that they show off. And I ask them, how many of those books have you read? It's like 4. They don't read them. And that's what happens with a lot of it. I've got friends, I've worked in the business community for a long time, and they get all the latest books, all the latest, this is the business book that's going to make us great this year. And there is so much information in those books that they get overwhelmed. They usually don't get past halfway through it, and they don't do anything with it. And I didn't want this to be one of those books or the self-help books where there's just so much information that you get bogged down and you don't know where to go. So I keep this really simple, really to the point. If somebody wanted to actually get started, they could be starting working on their energy and working towards getting to their quantum room within 45 minutes of having the book in their hand. The last half of the book is just talking about some of the things that I've seen while I do it, the experiences that took place, so that people get an idea of what it is I'm doing and seeing and going through. So to get started, it's really fast. And it would absolutely break my heart if somebody bought this book and didn't read it and it just sat on a shelf. This book is made to get going on and to make a difference in your life.
That's great.
Awesome.
That's great. And it's good that it's so hands-on. I think that does help people finish it. I'm definitely one of those people. I'm always reading like 5 books at a time.
He's got like 5
and then finish none, or 1 of 5 or whatever. And it's just, I'm like that because I just want all this information all the time. But, I get distracted easily. We do. And we squirrel off into something else.
He calls me a haunted bag of squirrels.
Some other book or, crazy obsession. So that's really cool. And it's going to be built as like a series of books, right? So I imagine what you're talking about is sort of like similar just in style to like, say, spirit release therapy or something like that, but taking it to like new levels. And I imagine it takes some time to be able to go up to somebody and say, well, here's your parasite. I'm taking that off you right now.
So, well, that's really a great question. So people, and it's not so much that we immediately talk about those parasites. Somebody's just going to say something like, my mom is struggling. She just had a stroke and she's not healing. And I'll ask permission. Can I do a healing session on her? And that's when we find these things. We find the parasites, we find the companions and deal with them and help the person start healing. And so I don't go into it with the intent of that there's a parasite, there's a monster on the person. We just find what we find. And the less I know, usually the better off we are. I don't want to know that somebody has an ulcer or somebody has bone cancer or whatever, something like that, because I'll fixate on it. And then I don't get, a friend of mine says, spirit doesn't let me go where spirit wants me to go. I have to just go there pretty blank. I need to know a little bit about the person. I've been trying to do healings when I'm on these shows. People will ask me for a healing, and just an email doesn't always seem to be enough of a connection. If a friend of mine says, my neighbor is having this happen to them, will you do a healing? I'm able to connect to that neighbor through my friend. But I'm struggling a little bit connecting with somebody just on email. So I need to figure out how to get past that. And it might need to be a Zoom call or a Skype call or something, just a quick chance for me to talk to this person and get that energy moving back and forth between us to where we can do it. So I need to look at how I do that. But if anybody is in need of a healing, they can certainly go to my website, slipstreamshaman.com. I see it down below, going across the screen, and there's my email. There's an email link there, and you can do it. I don't charge for these healings, and I don't. I do not, and I don't try to get around that by taking a donation either. This is something that I just do to help the community. Sometimes I get behind. This week has been rough. I was on a few shows last week, so I had quite a few people asking for help. And then my daughter had a baby a week early, so I'm a grandfather for the first time. And my brain's done. Thank you. But yeah, I don't charge for this. It's something that I do to give back, and that's why the book's important. I will be doing some training seminars, and we'll figure out how to do YouTube, maybe monetize it that way. I want to do this full time eventually, but I feel like I should not charge, and I'm not saying that people that charge for these things are wrong by any means, but for some reason I get this nagging feeling that if I charge, I'm going to lose my ability to do this, and I don't want to do this at all. I don't want to hurt my chances of helping people.
That's great. I like that. I love that attitude. And, where we get charged for just about everything we do in the world. I mean, we can't even look up the weather anymore without having to sit through an ad. It's wonderful to hear that kind of spirit, something that we need. You need to know if a storm's coming, and you got to sit through like a 2-minute ad to see the weather. It drives me nuts. The reality of today is changed
also,
so much.
If we could, I'd like anybody that's on Instagram, if you want to come over and connect with me there. I'm fairly new to it. I'm sure I'm not even using the right terminology, but if you want to connect and follow, please do. I'll follow you back. And that's where most of the information is going to go out as we do new things, as we do what's called a polymedella. I will let you know about that through Instagram. So anybody that's on Instagram, I would encourage you to sign up, and it's at Slipstream Shaman. And again, I'm probably using the wrong terminology. I don't think sign up's the right word, but if you want to follow me, I'll follow you back. So, and maybe polymedella is something that we should talk about for a minute.
Yeah,
please.
You just mentioned a term, and I was going to ask you what that was.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was doing some work one day with a person, and it dawned on me that it was like the 7th person out of 10 that had this same manifestation. And by that I mean I'm working with this person, and I'm finding this just big dark cloud over their head of chaos, of anxiety, of things just swirling around. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, well, how many people are being affected by this? And that was when the whole polymedella thing came on. What it means is many healings, and it's something I coined, many healings. And so there's a zeitgeist going on out there, a spirit of the times where something similar is happening to a bunch of people, and we'll do this process for the group, and they don't even need to know that they're a part of it. The timing can be completely different, because time in the quantum room is different than time out here. And the healing that we're doing today might not be something that they need until 3 years from now. And they just happen to notice on a YouTube video and realize that they needed that healing, and it comes through. And it's the same thing with retrocausality. And we'll talk about that in a second too. But the polymedella is something that I do to help groups. And this one might sound a little bit far-fetched. But a little over a year ago, when we were wearing the masks, I manage a retail store. I manage a large retail store. And when we were wearing the masks, I had 2 groups of people that were mad at me because of the masks. There was a group that was mad at me because they had to wear a mask when they were at work or shopping. And then there was a group that was mad because other people were trying not to wear the masks while they were at work or shopping. And there was a lot of tension, a lot of pressure, a lot of hate building up between these groups. And even beyond that, they hated the government for telling us what to do, and the government for not telling more people what to do. And, everybody hated everybody for a while there.
Yeah.
So much division.
So much division. And I had heard that, there was a lot of protests going on, and I had heard that my store had been singled out as a place that they were going to protest on a certain day. There was a national protest day coming up, and we were chosen. And so I started doing every day. I started meditating, going to the quantum room, doing a polymedella geared towards people's feelings around masks. And it was just to release that tension, release the hate, release the anxiety. And I did that for 4 days in a row. And I can't remember if it was 1 day or 2 days before the scheduled protest that they were going to do nationwide. The government changed the mandate, and it wasn't even a great big change. It was just allowing people to have a choice again. And that was the final straw. It just let all that energy out. Remember how much hatred and crazy there was around the masks? And then it was all gone in virtually 1 day. And I hope that I was a part of that. If nothing else, maybe I was that final straw that broke the camel's back and helped it to happen. But I do know that I was spending the time working with the energy, working on that as a polymedella to help. And I didn't know how it was going to help. I was just hoping honestly, I was just hoping that I wasn't going to get a violent protest. I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with a mob. And but it seemed to affect things on a much bigger scale. As I'm doing this work, and the other energy healers that are probably listening now, as they were doing it when they started, you get these things and you say, well, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe the heart medicine just started working with that person. Maybe the stent that was put in the dog's liver just finally started working. Maybe this. But what the common thing was, we set the intent, went in and worked on the person, and made a change. And once enough of those coincidences stacked up to where I could believe in what I was doing was when this really started moving fast, and I started thinking about writing the book. And the book went through about 5 different versions and I just couldn't find the way that fit right until I just decided, you know what, tell my story. And so it's just written as my story. And that seemed to be the best way.
It's awesome.
I like that. You mentioned retro causality.
Yes.
As well earlier.
Retro causality it's an amazing thing. I can remember where I was when I first heard about this, and I actually had to pull off the freeway. I was driving. I had to pull off the freeway because it absolutely blew my mind. And what that is things that we do now can actually affect the past, change the past. And I see this when I do trauma release process, which will be in the next book. We're releasing trauma from something that happened years ago. And I'll tell you an experience of mine with that, something that happened years ago that affects us now. And so many things, as you know, in the paranormal world, we can't prove. It always cracks me up when people are saying, we're using the scientific method because they have an electronic recorder or they have a video camera. That's not a scientific method. The scientific method's about repetition and things like that. So very few things in our community can be repeated because it's just not how it works.
Can't recreate the exact situation. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was thinking about that as well on the drive. So synchronicities are just bizarre.
Yeah.
We were in a castle in Vermont recently, and I'm thinking about the scientific method. I'm like, no, it doesn't apply at all. What are we going to drive to Vermont, which is a long drive for us? So, recreate the night, the time, the moon phase. There's so many things that involved with trying to use the scientific method that people don't often think about that.
And they also call it what did they call it? We call it data. We don't call it
data. We do that instead of evidence.
Just not evidence.
Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Nobody knows. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
For sure. So yeah.
I just had to move the same ride.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Leading up to us talking. So it's funny it comes up.
Bizarre.
So but retro causality is something that has been experimented with using the scientific method, and they found that it's accurate. And the best not evidence, but the best experiment that I saw was researchers went to a hospital and they got the files from people that had a blood disease, and this was from they only took the files that were 10 years or older, and they just randomly put them in two piles. One pile they prayed over, set intent for healing, did every positive thing you can think of to this stack of files. The other stack of files they didn't do anything with. Then they reviewed what was going on with these people, and they found that the people that were in the stack that they did this prayer on, and the intent and the energy work and everything else, recovered faster, had a better rate of not getting this disease back. Every factor came out better on the group that they did this thing for in the future that had already taken place. And for me, I can tell you that when I was in high school, I had a hernia operation, and it was a doozy. I had a lot of intestines that came out. And during the operation, I left my body, and I believe my body probably died for a minute because the doctors lost their mind, and the surgeon was screaming at the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist was screaming back, and a nurse ran out of the room, and all this stuff was going on. Chaos was going on, and I was floating in the corner of the room watching this. And I don't know exactly what they did, but I believe the anesthesiologist changed something that was going in, some chemical going into me, and I was sucked right back into my body.
Oh, wow.
The next day, the doctor came by, and he was doing his rounds, checking on things, and him and a nurse. And this was when you were in the hospital for over a week after a hernia operation. This was in the 70s. And he's checking me, and I said, "So what happened during the surgery? Did I die, or what was that?" He turned absolutely white and said, "No, you didn't die. Nothing like that happened." I said, "Well, I remember this," and I tell him, and he says, "No, nothing like that happened." And him and the nurse were gone. And the rest of the time I was in that hospital, I never saw him again. A different doctor, a different surgeon would come in and check on the scar and check on me. I never saw him again in the next 5 or 6, 7 days, however long I was there. That scar from that hernia operation was it stood out. There was probably a 2-inch swath on each side of the scar that was swollen for years. I'm talking 10, 15, 20 years. Well, wow. Yeah, probably 20 years. And the scar itself was very red, and it hurt, and it's right there where your belt is. I was always bumping it. It was bad. It was painful. And when I learned about trauma release, which is very similar, I think it's doing retro-causality. We did the trauma release process on it. I released whatever I was holding in that area, and it started healing. And I don't remember exactly how fast it took care of itself, but this has been 15 years ago.
Wow.
But within a couple months, the pain was completely gone. The swelling was gone, and it was looking good. I cannot find that scar now. I have no idea where it is. And it was
there for 20 years.
Yeah. It was a huge, giant, nasty Frankenstein looking thing for 20 years.
Wow.
You can't see it now. And that's an example of retrocausality. And that's going to be a big focus of the next book, the trauma release process. And it's going to be to help everybody, whether it's a physical trauma, an emotional trauma, even a spiritual trauma, to release these things so that you can heal and get better.
That's great. That's almost like you're manipulating the timeline of events.
Yeah.
That occur.
And that's exactly what it feels like when you look at it, when you do a timeline therapy, where you go down, you follow your timeline back, and you make this change. You can see a wave just blasting up your timeline. And the neat part is it goes past you. It goes into your future, this change. And what we don't necessarily always look at is it's going behind you too. So the healing is healing frontward and back. You're healing your present, your past, your future. And that gets us into 7 generational healing, which was the latest incarnation of where we're at with the Slipstream Shaman process. Is After you do the warrior team, you go to the love team, and then your 7 generations come in to finish things off. And so you work with the person, you get the whether it's a parasite or a companion or both off of them, get them cleaned up and ready. The love team gets them, heals them, gets them strong and ready to go. And then 7 generations from the past, 7 generations from the future come to help them. And it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's not just tied to blood relatives. So somebody that's 80 years old and has never had children, you might be thinking, well, they're not going to have a future 7 generations. They do. It's your spirit group. It's your friend families. It's all those people that are important to you are part of this 7 generation, and it becomes gigantic. When I look at this taking place at the end of the sessions with people, I'm up above looking down, and what this ends up looking like is something that's kind of like the Mayan calendar is what it reminds me of. There's all these entities in a big circle around this person, and different shapes start to appear with these people. Different symbols and shapes start to appear all through this circle. And, it might be pareidolia, it might be whatever, but I can see different shapes forming, and each person's is different. And I think it's a new, maybe you call it a DNA sequence. I don't know, but it's changing what's happening with that person, and it's healing everybody that's there for 7 generations back, 7 generations in the future. It's an unbelievable.
Jeepers. Wow.
That sounds great. Can I ask you, why is it 7 both ways?
Mm-hmm.
It's the significance of 7.
Because I read about 7 generational healing, and it became 7. I didn't make up the number. Yeah. I'm not sure where that came from, or that 3's a magic number.
It covers a lot. I mean, 7 generations it's a good amount for sure.
Yeah.
But
it's more than most of us can see, and maybe that's where it comes from. Is we're lucky to see 5 generations, right? So it'd be like for me, it'd be like my grandchild, my daughter, me, my dad, and his dad. Well, my granddaughter's not going to meet my grandfather, so most people won't be able to see 7 generations, and that might be where it came from, just to show how big and powerful it is.
Wow, that is fantastic. So, wow, you can get this in one book. I think. Well, there are multiple books.
There are multiple books, but the process where we do the warrior team, the love team, and then the 7 generations come in. That's all in this first book.
And when you say we, this is the initial group that you mentioned at the front of the show that you got together with. There was a shaman involved, and there's some other people. Is that group? Do you advertise that group as a group, or how does that work?
Yeah, that group has been disbanded for years and years and years. When I say we, I'm talking about me, my spirit guides, my high guides, my animal spirit guides, the spirits of the animals and people that come help me in this. That's the we I'm referring to, and I've just always said we, and people are asking me, well, who's the co-author? Where's this we? And it's all these things that came together to make this, and that's where the we comes from. It's teamwork.
Really
your tribe.
I like that you use animals. When you mentioned a dog that you used to have, I have to tell the story, and I'm sorry, I apologize ahead to the listeners that have heard me tell it before, but years and years ago, I did a guided meditation to find my spirit animal. And I was expecting something really cool, like a hawk, a wolf, that kind of thing. Cool spirit animal. And, it's a guided thing, and walking through the forest and going down the path and all this stuff. And I got really into it, and I get to my spot, my place. And I see my dog I had as a child that had grown old and died. And he wasn't necessarily in a great place. He was still kind of decrepit, and, you could only see out of one eye. And that's what comes walking out. And I just take it as the dog loved me, and I love the dog. But it was not at all what I was expecting when we said spirit animal. I was expecting this kind of cool animal,
Yeah.
Hawk, the wings of a hawk on a wolf with a scorpion tail. I go,
Sure. And that's what everybody hopes for.
Dog.
Exactly.
and
It's a great
you know,
dog, so, you know.
yeah, and you got to see this wonderful dog, and that dog obviously loves you, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's a great spirit animal, and I'm so thankful that my dogs wanted to come help me, and so yeah, I'm very thankful for it. And when I went through my spirit animal ceremony, people were really concerned. Same thing you're talking about. One person got a mouse and they were really upset, but that was what came to him. And I was lucky. I actually had, if it's okay, I'll just talk about the ceremony. It was in a really cool place in the Utah desert and right along this mountain range, and it had ice and snow. It was in the winter. And we're walking around this fire, and we're going up doing circles, and we're supposed to just let the spirit of the animal come to us. And as we're doing this, people started kind of acting like the animal. You know, there was a guy doing this, he was turning into a moose, and there was one flying and different things. And I'm not the nicest person. I was kind of giggling. So yeah, sure, that's what you're doing. I was awful. But then something started changing for me, and my chest started pushing forward, and it felt like my back was getting longer, and I was no longer slipping on the ice, and I felt a heaviness above me, and what came to me was a bull elk for that one. And I'm walking, I'm now on the ice, not slipping, not sliding, everything's great. And then it left me, and everybody else is still doing their thing. And I was really upset, and I was like, why did it leave? And I'm trying to get it back. And so I just relaxed and invited it back, and it didn't come back, but something else did. I ended up getting 2 spirit animals that night, 2 animal guides. And the next thing you know, I could feel my steps getting wider and wider apart. I'm taking longer and longer strides. Again, not slipping, not sliding on this ice. And this was treacherous. Just minutes before, it was everything I could do not to fall down. And now I'm taking these giant strides, and my arms are starting to swing. And I realize I've got Bigfoot with me. So I got a bull elk and Bigfoot. And people that know me said, well, of course you did. So I had Bigfoot, and I can remember looking along this ridge of mountains and truly believing that if I wanted to leave this fire and just walk, that I could just walk along that ridge line and be miles, if not hundreds of miles away in minutes or seconds. I had this feeling of time didn't matter, distance didn't matter. I could go anywhere I wanted as fast as I wanted with this spirit guide. And
Wow.
And when that left, I was bummed too. So those were just wonderful, wonderful moments when I had that really close interaction with those 2 spirits.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Jeannie says otter.
Hers is an otter.
So
Yeah,
you guys got
that's a
some
cool one.
spirit animals out there. You can let us know. That's very cool. It's a surprising thing. Now you mentioned Bigfoot. Is that what you think Bigfoot is? Does he reside in a different realm than humans, or is he flesh and blood and living in this 3D matrix, if you will? So
I think he's flesh and blood. And she actually, I believe that my spirit guide's a female Bigfoot. I think they're flesh and blood, but I think they live outside, or at least they can move outside our dimension, our plane of existence. I think they can go between the 2 worlds. Too many times we find tracks that lead to nowhere. They're just gone. You hear about people shooting them and they just flash and they're gone. You hear about them in a place that there's no way they could get out of, and they do. They're just gone. And so I think they're able to leave and go in and outside our dimension and move around. And I don't know if they're here on vacation or just to watch us or why we get to see them. But I don't think they're an ape. I don't think that they're some mindless animal. My guess is they're very intelligent, and they can move between planes of existence, much like we would talk about an angel or a demon or things like that, being able to interact with humans and be in a different realm.
Yeah, across those levels we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate and appear. I know Steve Meyers mentioned that like Bigfoot phenomena occurs. Yeah.
Where's Shay?
in places where that wouldn't really support one if they were
Yes.
flesh and blood.
Like in the UK, he said it was like an island.
Yeah, in the UK, like there's not enough woods left and to really support these things as an ongoing species.
But people,
a Yeti. What's there to eat for a Yeti? I mean, the rocks. Yeah, there's not much up there.
No.
yeah, and that's maybe why we don't see the dead ones or the things that they ate necessarily.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, right. Somebody would identify that scat at some point as being a little different.
You know what? If they were apes, they'd throw it at us. So I'm pretty sure they're not just apes.
That's right. Monkeys throw poo for sure. So where do people find the book? Slipstream Shaman, using quantum healing for individuals, communities, the planet, and beyond. It's full title.
Great. Yeah, a great place to go is just search Slipstream Shaman at Amazon, or you can go to my website, Slipstream Shaman, and there's a place to order it there as well. On the front page, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a button, Order Now, and it takes you to Amazon where you can order it. And it's in Kindle and also paperback.
Oh, excellent.
I'm going to share the website as well. So people can see it because it is cool looking. I love that picture you got up there.
Yes. Yeah, a friend of mine from Florida made that for me.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Very powerful.
Very.
And you've got talks and interviews, and you have a podcast. You want to talk about that as well, My Side of the Universe.
Sure. Yeah, My Side of the Universe is something that I started 5 years ago in Utah on KOAL. And we've just been absolutely, it's the people that I've had on there has been so wonderful. I've had Jim Vieira, who had a couple TV shows about finding giants, things like that.
Yeah, they're from Rhode Island or Mass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're right there by you. Yeah. Jim is just crazy intelligent. That guy, when he talks, your brain starts to hurt because he's giving you so much information. And we've had Tuvok from Voyager was on. My absolute favorite thing, though, is I had Billy Clark, and he is the stunt man who played the Gorn on the original Star Trek, that slow-moving lizard man that fought Captain Kirk. I got to have him on. Absolute highlight. It was just the coolest thing. One of the biggest things from my childhood. I got to talk to the person. So, and then, a bunch of ancient alien people, and then tons of authors, and then just a lot of people. I'll be in a grocery store and I hear somebody talking about their house being haunted. I start talking to them, get them on the show. Hear about somebody that knows someone that was abducted by aliens. I get them on the show. Somebody's seen Bigfoot. I get them on the show. So it's a little bit of everything. People that you know and people that you would probably never know. But every one of them brings something neat and fun. And I've only had one that wasn't too enjoyable, and that was about my second or third. That guy got on, and I'm hoping I'm not doing this, but I welcomed him to My Side of the Universe, and he took this deep breath and then vomited words for 45 minutes. And I didn't say a thing.
You just kept going. Sometimes that's good. I mean, even though you want to ask questions and things, sometimes that's good. They just go with it.
Yeah, just let him do his thing.
We understand.
That's really cool. Were you following the meteor that flew over Utah this week, earlier in the week? I know that was a national news story.
Yeah, I've been up in Oregon, and I missed most of that. I would love to. I've seen a few columns about it and a few pictures. They found some small fragments and a fairly good-sized fragment. So, yeah, that would have been wonderful to see. I was in Utah, not too far from the station, when one of our satellites blew up as it was coming through the atmosphere, and that lit up the sky out there. And of course, I received probably 40 emails and then people coming into where I work, just giving me pictures of things that that they took that night, and so I've got tons of pictures of that event. And when you're in a small town and you're known as the weird guy that likes weird things, they always bring it to you.
Right. I thought it was pretty cool. I saw some video footage of it and it was pretty good. Ginny had a question for you here. She says, Todd, what tribe taught you to be a shaman? Mine, we are taught starting as a child, takes decades, but you're also with genetics medicine family based on your natural abilities.
Yeah. So the tribe that the original shaman that I worked with was Shoshone, and then everything else has been just me developing it on my own and things coming to me, and I don't know if it's from the tribes that I'm getting this information, but it's all coming through in the quantum realm, in the spirit and energy realm that is coming to me. And so yes, I know that most of them take years and years and years, and I wouldn't claim to be a better shaman than they are by any stretch. I'm just saying this is something different, and you can use this and get right to work on things.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. That's awesome.
Not everybody has that path in life, so
No.
to be able to touch on it and in any way is wonderful, and learn from it, and, grow. And I do love the spirit rescue type thing, and I've heard of spirit circles, and we've looked into that history a bit. It goes back a long ways, besides even like tribal things and like the spiritualist movement. There were people going into like asylums and that were, mentally ill, that they saw had these kind of weird squiggly things and attachments and the demons and the good stuff and the bad stuff, and they were working on taking it off. So, I have to think that there's something there and give it credence, and it's exciting work.
Yeah, and growing up, I was big on TV, and they would have voodoo, or they would have witch doctors, or they would have whatever, and they were always talking about taking demons off people, and I honestly I thought they were making fun of these things, but as I started working in the spirit realm, I started seeing things that I could absolutely believe people would call a demon or a monster. So yeah, I think that I'm kind of doing the same thing, and we're not too far apart, even though we have different methods of getting there. Yeah.
Well, whatever works is the best way.
I wanted to ask you a question for a while. I've had it written down for a while. Like the parasites. Now, when you say demons, because we hate the dreaded D word, but are they negative spirits to you? Do you feel them? Are they entities? What are they? From a different
That's a great question, and I'm not sure. So like the thing that I took off today, that parasite, it almost felt mindless. Like I believe it's like Chris was saying, a negative thought got out and was able to grow and develop into this thing. And so it felt mindless. I'm working with a gentleman in Florida right now, and we found a tube connected to him, and when we followed it, it was to this gigantic something like planet-sized, just giant weird shape, and pardon me, but I call it a cervix. It looks like a giant cervix.
Whatever you
yeah, and so it looks like
we're
a
very
cervix.
relaxed here. You can
Okay. And it had a lot of different tendrils coming off, attaching to lots of people. So this thing, I don't know if I would call it a demon, but it's definitely something that is looking at us and other things as food, and feeding off of people. So I need to work on that. I don't know how I'm going to help everybody, but certainly trying to keep it away from this guy and keep the attachment from coming back. So yeah, I think there's some negative, dangerous things out there. For a long time, I thought if you went in there with positive intent, that's all that you would encounter. But that hasn't always been the case. I have run into a few negative things. One that I believe is an alien, and then some things that could be demons, could just be bad energy, bad spirit. It's hard to put a label on them.
Okay.
Right, but that's how they present themselves to you.
Right.
Yes.
We've heard descriptions like that. Like Lynn Monet's told us stuff like this, and she'd see things hanging off people's backs. And a lot of times tendrils seem to be involved. That's been a common thing. So, they have to exist on some level where you got multiple people seeing kind of the same,
Entity.
nasty thing, that's out there. I do believe they exist. We do. We think
do.
that's a real deal, but I don't see them as much. Now, Kristen sees a little better than I do, and she's seen gargoyle like things, and different things popping in more of the physical realm than where I might just see things mentally, So
just talked to a guy yesterday about a gargoyle that he'd been seeing. So there's stuff out there. This thing was like 9 feet tall.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's exactly what I saw. 9 feet tall, and he had bat wings. It looked like bat wings.
This guy, he didn't mention the bat wings, but he did say the feet were backwards, and that the knees went opposite of what ours do. So the way they bend was different, and then the feet were backwards. He didn't mention the wings though.
It reminds me of like the artistic renditions of the demons of the Goetia. If you're familiar with those old demon pics you see, they're hand drawn and that sort of thing. And it's usually hybrids of animals and different creatures, humans and things going the wrong directions and stuff. Yeah. I don't know what the true inspiration was for the actual pictures of those things, but you wonder when, an artist gets inspired, what are they tapping into, right? Where does inspiration come from?
The muse, basically.
The muse. Yeah.
For sure.
Based on some, other level of reality. Question out here from you, for you, from
wow.
To you. Andy Mercer says, sorry, late to the show. So as Todd is saying, these things physically exist independently of us.
Yes, they're independent of us. I don't know about physical existence. I'm seeing these things like I said, in the quantum realm that I call it. So their energy, their spirit, they're on a level like that. I have not seen a physical manifestation of these things. It's just when I'm in that room working with that person, and the person that's there could be at a spirit level, at a brain level, just a thought level. I'm not sure exactly what level we're working in. I know it's not our plane of existence. It's not a physical body. So I'm not seeing these things in a place where if I cut off a finger, I'd be able to hold one up and show you.
Oh, great. Yes. And Andy mentions that he is a part of Paranormal UK Radio, which we are as well. And I mentioned at the front of the show. That's right. Cool. I knew that name. Yeah. And lots of great folks there.
I just wanted to tell you, Andy, I'd reply to you, but hold on. I would reply to you, but my computer just had a mental breakdown.
Yep. Our computer breaks every show.
It's done.
We know.
It's about an hour and a half I give it. So I'm sorry, Andy, but yes.
It'll see the smoke pretty soon. But I make that joke too. So we got to replace the computer.
Catch us on fire.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, Andy, good to see you. And he says, cool. I agree with you, Todd. Yeah, and lots of great hosts there. So we're going to give that a plug.
Yes.
I was saying it's going to become a podcast. It'll be out Wednesday. And I'll let you know, Todd, when it's out as an audio podcast.
Fantastic.
And you can check that out. And Andy says, no problems, Bunny.
On the bunny. See? Somebody got her. We were talking about that before the show. Of
course, another little synchronicity.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That is awesome. So I want to just recap a couple of things real quick. To Andy's question, you're going in a meditative state, the quantum room, which we did talk about a little bit earlier in the show, to see these creatures exist and remove them and replace them with better things. And I love that, that void that needs to get filled. That is something I have heard before. The book is called Slipstream Shaman, Using Quantum Healing for Individuals, Communities, the Planet, and Beyond.
Good job.
I love that.
I do too.
And people can check out your website, which, let's see, I'll bring it up here again real fast. I just got to click the right button. Slipstream Shaman. Which is at slipstreamshaman.com, as you might imagine. And your podcast is up there as well, which is My Side of the Universe. Did I get that correct?
My Side of the Universe.
And is that available like wherever you get a podcast?
I don't know how many places it's available. It's available on my website. And also if you go to castlecountryradio.com, there's some there as well.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Well, this is
genius. Something.
And Instagram also. Be sure to go to Slipstream Shaman at Instagram and be able to keep up with everything we're doing.
Excellent. That's so cool. Well, this has been a real pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much.
And we thank you for joining us, Todd. And just stick around. We'll wrap things up and we'll chat a little bit.
Very good.
Thank you so much. And that is all the time we have for today for Bigfoot and the Bunny. We will be back on Thursday on Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast.
Mhm.
And we have Dr. Michael Lynch coming on, so that'll be a lot of fun.
He's always
A lot
fun.
of you guys like him. He's a good time. We'll be talking for a long time, most likely.
Yes, last time was almost 3.5 hours. Jeannie, you're funny. I can't comment back to you, but that's really funny.
And thank you, everybody that joined us. Jeannie, Andy Mercer, from Park Radio, Anne-Marie Young, and everybody else that joined. You guys know who you are. Thank you so much.
Yep.
We'll see you next Thursday, and we do have a show on Saturday.
Yes.
So we'll see you then. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.